The Galilee Squadron was an aerial unit established by the Yeshuv during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War to assist the Jewish war effort in northern Palestine. Initially a part of the Sherut Avir, the aerial arm of the Haganah, it was absorbed into the fledgling Israeli Air Force upon the latter's formation on 28 May 1948. The unit served throughout the war, following which it was amalgamated with several other units to form the IAF's 100 Squadron. History, formation and initial operations on 10 November 1947. With the impending decision on the partition of Palestine and the increasing likelihood of violent confrontations with their Arab neighbors, the leadership of the Yeshuv announced the establishment of the Sherut Avir, operating a collection of light aircraft from SDE Dove outside Tel Aviv. The SAR flew supply, communications, observation and medical evacuation flights, and occasionally even participated in combat. As fighting intensified throughout the region in early 1948, however, the SA's sole squadron in Tel Aviv could not meet all operational needs. Soon new detachments were deployed to the Negev and the Galilee, where several aircraft began operating from the former RAF landing ground at Mahanaim in support of the newly formed Golani Brigade. When the brigade moved its headquarters to Yavnel, 3 SAR aircraft deployed to an airstrip constructed there. On 4 April 1948, 2 Oyster autocrats, 3 pilots and 2 mechanics, were formed into the SA's Galilee section, headed by Pesach Tolchinki. On 25 April, the unit was officially designated the SA's 3rd Squadron and given the call sign Lavi. The squadron went into action on the very day of its formation. Early 1948 had seen the Yeshuv on the defensive, with Arab forces dominating the roads and attacking Jewish transportation. On 4 April, with Mishmahimek under assault from Fawzi al-Kawukji's Arab Liberation Army, the squadron flew its first sorties, with Golani observers on board. 3 days later it dropped ammunition to the beleaguered kibbutz, and 9 April saw its first combat mission, dropping handheld bombs on al-Kawukji's Syrian artillery. In all, about a dozen sorties were flown during the Battle of Mishmahimek, the battle in which the ALA was repulsed and neighboring Palestinian villages taken, signaled a change of policy for Jewish forces in the north, and these now went on the offensive. On 27 April, an Oyster autocrat assisted the Haganah force take control of the evacuated British Tegat fort at Samek. Fighting intensified as the end of the British Mandate for Palestine drew near. During the first half of May, the squadron flew 180 sorties, an average of 4 sorties per pilot per day, and as many as 9. These were predominantly reconnaissance, medical evacuation and supply flights, but also included combat missions. On 1 May, the settlement of Ramon Naftali came under attack from ALA forces which far outnumbered and outgunned its 45 Jewish defenders. With Operation Yefta and the battles for Safed underway, there were no ground forces available to provide assistance. The Galilee Squadron came to Ramon Naftali's aid, making 9 bombing and strafing sorties against the attacking forces. Its aircraft suffered extensive damage from ground fire but forced an Arab withdrawal and saved the Moshav. Israeli independence and Arab invasion. Following Israel's declaration of independence on 14 May 1948, the territory of the former Mandate of Palestine was invaded by several Arab armies. While the Galilee Squadron had hitherto faced the Arab Liberation Army and Palestinian irregulars, it was now forced to contend with the Lebanese, Iraqi and Syrian armies as well. On 14 May, the squadron participated in the battle between the Lebanese army and the Palmach for al-Malkiya, which fell to the Lebanese. On On the following night, the squadron went into action against Iraqi forces operating in the Jordan Valley, navigating by the fires caused by the Syrian bombardment of Masada and Shara Haganah. An autocrat attempted to bomb a bridge across the Jordan River, but instead hit fuel tanks of the Iraqi Petroleum Company, almost causing the aircraft to crash in the resulting explosion. May 16 witnessed the squadron assisting the Palmach to take the fort at Nabi Yusha, which had already repulsed 2 assaults in April. The squadron's autocrats and Fairchild Argus dropped incendiary bombs on the fort, but inflicted little damage. Its Lebanese defenders nevertheless abandoned it by morning to reinforce al-Malkiyah. The Arab invasion also introduced the prospect of encounters with the Syrian Air Force. Although not particularly powerful, the SAF fielded the North American Harvard and Avro Anson aircraft in the attack and bombing roles. Both were superior to the types operated by the Galilee Squadron. Syrian Harvards twice, on May 17 and 19, attempted to shoot down the Galilee's light aircraft. Following the latter incident, the squadron was forced to relocate to Mahanaim after an SAF Harvard had followed its quarry to discover the airfield at Yavnel. Soon, however, Mahanaim came under attack from both Syrian Harvards and artillery as well. On the 9th of June, the squadron moved to Ramat David. Operations nevertheless continued apace, with no let-up in the fighting on several fronts. The squadron returned to al-Malkiyah on the 29th of May from the second battle at the village. Although the assault was successful, the village fell to Lebanese forces again on the 5th of June. It would change hands several more times until finally taken by Israeli forces. Late May and early June also witnessed the squadron support Israeli forces operating in the vicinity of Jenin. Bombing missions were flown against the local police station, though Israeli forces were ultimately forced to withdraw. Shortly before the first truce of the war went into effect on the 11th of June, the squadron helped repulse an air assault on the town of Safera and bombed the nearby village of Lubia. Later activities. The first truce allowed both sides to regroup and recuperate. On the Israeli side, the pre-state institutions were transformed into the agencies of a state. The truce witnessed the transformation of the Israeli Air Force, formally established on May 28, into a comprehensive fighting force. The Sherut Avir was absorbed into this new organization, and it was reorganized. Fighter aircraft required and personnel recruited. The Galilee Squadron received new equipment and personnel as well, and exploited the lull in the fighting to conduct reconnaissance all over the north. On the 19th of June, it returned to Yavnel. When fighting resumed on the 9th of July, Israel's primary objectives were the expulsion of the Arab Liberation Army and Syrian forces from the Galilee. 2 Israeli Defense Forces operations were therefore put into motion, Dekel in the eastern Galilee and Brosh in the west, with the squadron supporting both. In the 10 days of fighting that raged until a second truce went into effect on July 18, the Galilee Squadron carried out 91 bombing sorties and dropped 6 tons of bombs. The second truce of the war lasted until October 1948. The squadron spent this time stepping up training and reconnaissance flights. The airfield at Yavnel, still threatened by the Syrian Air Force, was also upgraded with the installation of its first anti-aircraft cannons and decoy aircraft. Fighting in the Galilee resumed on the 22nd of October with an attack by the Ayla on Mainara and the mountains overlooking the Galilee Panhandle. Israeli forces, supported by the Galilee Squadron, failed to dislodge the ALA from the territory it had captured. On the 29th of October, however, the IDF launched Operation Hiram, which pushed the ALA back into Lebanon and effectively marked its demise. Hiram began with IDF air attacks against key village and ALA positions in the Upper Galilee, though these were carried out by the IAF's heavier assets, such as 69 squadrons B-17S and 103 squadrons C-47S. The Galilee Squadron flew 8 bombing sorties during the 2-day operation, as well as reconnaissance and leaflet-dropping missions. In late November 1948, the coming of winter and the poor state of the airfield at Yavnel once again prompted the squadron to relocate to Ramat David. A month later, the IAF decided to disband both the Galilee and Negev squadrons, the role having been taken over by squadrons flying more capable aircraft. The two moved to Tel Nof, where they were amalgamated with the Tel Aviv squadron to form the IAF's 100 Flying Camel Squadron. The Galilee Squadron was officially disbanded on the 28th of January 1949. Commemoration. A memorial to the Galilee Squadron and its men stands in Yavnel's Goran Park. Commanders: Pesach Tolchinki, Daniel Buchstein, Moshe Feldman, Naam Rapoport, Chaim Goldman, Yosef Steinman, Aharon Baran. Aircraft flown: Taylorcraft BL, Orster AOP-5, Orster J-1 Autocrat, Fairchild F-24R Argus, Piper PA-11-90 Super Cub.